Proportions. A proportion is an equation stating that two ratios are equivalent or equal to each other. The two quantities that form a proportion are then considered proportional. What we're going to start working with to begin with is deciding whether two sets of rates or ratios are considered proportional. So it's kind of looking at two fractions and asking if they're equivalent to each other or equal to each other. Two ratios are proportional if their reduced ratios are the same, if their decimal form, if you were to change them into a decimal, is the same, or if you check cross products. So cross products is probably something that'll be new to you. So for example, if I started out with this set of ratios, I've got 2/3, and is that equivalent to 4/6? So there's a couple different options that you could do. You could make equivalent fractions. So somebody may look at this one and say, hey, 4/6 would reduce down because 2 would go into each of those. And this would become 2/3. So now is 2/3 equal to 2/3? Yes, it is. Then we would say, yes, this is proportional. Okay, so that's one method. Somebody else may have also said, hey, I want to make them equivalent, but instead of reducing them, I'm going to change this front fraction because if I took 2 times 2, I could get 4. So then I would have to go times 2 on this. Would that give me 6? Yeah, it would give me 4/6. And here we ended up with the same fraction. So once again, yes, it would be proportional. Okay, so that's doing equivalent fractions. There's also the method that you could go through and change each of these into their decimal form to check them. So of course you can use a calculator on this. I'm not checking your division, but when we read this fraction, it would be 2 divided by 3. So top to bottom is the way that you would type it into your calculator, 2 divided by 3, which would give me 0.6 repeating. Okay, if I did the same thing with my 4 divided by 6, 4 divided by 6, it gives me 0.6 repeating. And you'll notice that, yes, once again, those were the same decimals. Okay, the new concept that actually we'll tie into a little bit more in our next lesson is when we're finding missing parts of proportions, we'll have to understand cross products. Cross products are when you can take a number, a set of fractions, and you can multiply diagonally. So when we go through to do this, 2 times 6 would give me 12. And 3 times 4 would also give me 12. So we're going to do cross products there. Eventually we'll call this cross multiply and divide, or cross multiply and solve as you get older. But this, because we ended up with the same cross products, then yes, they are considered proportional. So notice that we went through 3 different ways that we could actually go through and decide whether or not a set of ratios were proportional to each other. So I want you to try, let's try this one. Okay, and you can decide, do I want to do equivalent fractions? Do I want to go through and change them to decimals? Do I want to check cross products? Okay, and any of the methods should give you the correct answer. So if I go through and do this one, I'll do cross products. So 4 times 8 is 32. 12 times 6, I can already tell, is going to be way over 32. That would give me 72. And that's without me even going through and using my calculator. I could tell if it was 10 times 6, that would give me 60. This would be a no. Okay, if somebody changed it to decimals, well, 6 divided by 4 gives you 1.5. And 8 divided by 12 gives you 0.6 repeating. Not the same. Somebody else might have just looked and said, hey, we have an improper fraction versus a regular fraction. There's no way they're equal to each other. All right, how about this one? Go ahead and try this one. One of your methods. It doesn't matter if you do cross products, decimals, or equivalent fractions. So go ahead and try this one on your own. This one, just in case I didn't have a calculator, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide by and reduce the fraction. So like here, if I reduce, 3 would go into each of those. Now, somebody that doesn't like to find a number that's common between them, then they wouldn't like this method. Okay, so if I go through and do this, I would get 5 over 4. And here, if I divide, 5 goes into both of them. So 25 divided by 5, I'm going this way, by the way, would give me 5. 20 divided by 5 would be 4. I get 5 over 4 for each of them, so this would be a yes. Okay, Okay, somebody that doesn't like to reduce fractions or that's something that they struggle with, I would recommend checking the decimal. Punching it in as 25 divided by 20. You get 1.25. And then 15 divided by 12. You get 1.25. Cross products will also work. 12 times 25 gives me 300. Okay, 20 times 15, 2 times 15 is 30, add a 0, still 300. Okay, so there's lots of different methods. You have to find what you're comfortable with. And sometimes one method's easier to do just based on the numbers that you have. Okay, so I want you guys to try this one on your own, as well as this one. And I need a equal sign between these. Okay, so go through and check those two. So you can pause your video so that you've got time to work. Go through and check those two and see if they are proportional to each other or if they create proportions. Okay, so you should have ended up with a no and a yes, just depending on what you did. But either way, whether it's changing them to reduced fractions, changing them into their decimal form, or checking their cross products, you would note that on the first one, we did not get the same numbers, and on the second one, we did. So that's working with